Hi, and welcome back to ENTP Life. Now this video is for everybody who's been following my series on how to buy a property in Italy. I went to Italy to buy a property for €1. I ended up buying a few properties in Italy that weren't for €1, but were really freaking cheap. I spent a total of $18,000 on 2 properties. Now this episode is fairly special because I have somebody as a guest who's going to be talking to us about some of his experiences with relocating to Italy. He's actually has a channel here on YouTube called Dauvo, where he's walking through a lot of the Euro properties in the different cities throughout Italy, and he's also shopping for other Italian real estate. What's really interesting about his perspective is that he's an American who uprooted his life and started over in Italy. So since moving to Italy, he's kind of taken on this role of investing in property in his area. He sees that there's a lot of potential, and I really want to get into what it's like to relocate to Italy as an American, and I also want to highlight what's the process of buying the properties the way that he does, and also what are the real costs behind living in Italy. A lot of people have questioned me here on ENTP Life saying, well, how much is it going to cost you to live there? What are the carrying costs of the properties and taxes and all that? And I expect to dive into it in this interview. So without further delay, David, thank you for joining us. Please let everybody know how you actually came about living in Italy.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on your channel and congratulations on your success. The reason I'm in Italy is as cliche as saying I fell in love and I came here, and I think that happens quite a lot when you talk about Europe. So the reason I stayed is the exact same reason. My wife now, she was living near Milan, and we started communicating online, and I decided to come visit with a round trip ticket and only use the one way. So I never went back. We got married, we have a family with 3 kids, and now we're just living the la vida loca, I guess.
So some of the questions that I'm going to ask you are going to be kind of some of the questions that I've gotten in the comment section of my page. And if any of you guys have questions, please use the comment section below so that I'm able to actually give you some of the feedback. So a lot of the questions I got was related to what is the cost of living in Italy, what to expect if I'm trying to get residency. And since you are now a resident there, I think that's something I'm going to want to touch on. So first, what was it like actually relocating to Italy, and what were you going to run into, or what were the hurdles to actually stay there permanently?
Well, to answer your question, I came in by basically getting married to someone that had residency in Italy. It was a quick process. It only took about 3 months for me to get an approval, and that was perfect for the touristic visa. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. Most likely, the majority aren't going to go and get instantly married just so that they can stay in Italy, for example. And so there are other options you have are entrepreneur visas. There's an elective residency visa if you're coming as a retiree. There's a number of professional visas. There's a student visa. There's kind of a myriad of options. Really, what's important is for you to determine why you're coming over and try to fit within that visa category.
Yeah, so I do have a quick question on that. So what is the amount of time that they give you on just the basic tourist visa? Is it 3 months or 6 months?
Well, it's about 90 days. And it's a little confusing because it's a 90-day and then you have to go home. So it's a 90-day within a 6-month period. And so technically you could come for another 90 days within the same year. So you could stay for 6 months out of the year, but you'd be buying 2 sets of plane tickets.
Gotcha. Okay. Which isn't that bad because, spending 3 months out of the year in Italy and then 6 months later coming back for another 3 months might be the good split between living half of your year, right, in your local country, especially if you're in the States, and half of the year abroad. You pick the season that you prefer. I guess that's not so bad. I couldn't even answer that question because I was like, I really don't know if it's 30 or if it's 60 or if it's 90 or what have you. But at least that clarifies that. Now, the retiree visa, do you have to be a certain age for that, or is it just a matter of saying, hey, I'm not working anymore and I have my income coming in from another country?
In truth, this type of visa is called the Elective Residency visa, and it's perfect for retirees because what it really says is I'm not going to work in Italy. And so if you have the means to support yourself without working in Italy, then you can use this Elective Residency visa to stay long term. They approve like 1 year residencies up, but there's a next step that is involved when you actually get to Italy that could extend it to 2 years. So that can be explained at another point.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. So I guess that's not that bad because there's another woman. I forgot her name on YouTube. She just moved from the United States to Portugal, and I think her name was like Driven Spice or something along those lines. And I'm trying to set up an interview with her to kind of go through the same scenario. She was in the United States. She got tired of being here, and she's a stock trader. So she is able to generate her income as long as there's an internet connection and electricity, right? So I want to know and be able to show people who are watching like different pathways to being able to prove like you're able to support yourself without technically taking like an Italian job, so to speak. There was somebody else that I saw too that said there's a lot of jobs out there for English teachers. And sometimes applying for a work permit visa or like a working visa is one of the ways to obtain residency. And as an American, one of the easiest jobs to get is a job teaching English. Do you find that to be more or less the same?
So yeah, I've actually also taught English while living in this country, though it wasn't to Italians necessarily, it was from home. I do see a lot of the Americans that I've met in Italy that are working, they often do teach English. And so it is one of those things that if you can't find work in your category, which in my opinion you could, if you search, I've met others that are in the tech industry in the larger cities. If you want to live in Milan or Rome, for example, they do have English speaking jobs for mother tongue English speakers.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So at least that gives the people some options as far as like what they could do to earn. Like you could either earn from the United States, especially in passive forms or online, or you could get a job within Italy that's in demand or needed that you could only fill as an English speaker or as an English teacher and satisfy some of the residency options that exist. Now, another question that has come up a lot is how much does it actually cost to live in Italy? If you were to compare the middle class lifestyle of the United States to, getting that same equivalency in Italy, how much do you think that will cost?
Well, it's a good question. What I can say, I can give you a few examples. For example, I have a family of, 3 kids under 5 years old. And for us, we spend about 500 euros on food every single month. And this is actually only possible because there are different grades of supermarkets in Italy as well. We usually shop at the more economical option, whether it be like Lidl, M&D, or Eurospin. These are some examples. And then there's Esselunga, Carrefour, that are usually, the products are a little bit higher quality perhaps, or that they're brand name stuff. So usually pay a little bit more for that type of grocery. So there's just one example of a cost of living. As far as like rental rates go, you can find rent, in my opinion, a lot lower than you can find rent in most of America. Like just outside this area, you can rent a full, maybe 3-bedroom property for 300 euros. It's not in Milano, but you can find something like that outside. It isn't going to be brand new, but you can literally live for 300 euros a month. Now, I've done on my channel an interview with a real estate agent where he pointed out up a canyon, not in, again, Milan or a principal city that provides a lot of jobs. It was a beautiful, beautiful area, but that a little apartment that was like 1 bedroom that had a beautiful view was 400 euros. So if you're going to jump into Milan or Rome, that's going to jump up minimum of like 700 up to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, depending on the quality of the property.
Okay, so now that's if that somebody chose to rent. Now, those who've been following both of us are potentially looking at buying like vacation homes or retirement homes. What would you say is like, if you own the property outright, would be the carrying cost for like water, utilities, garbage carting, and that sort of thing?
So for my family of 5, with food and all those things added up, it puts us at about 830 euros every single month.
830 euros every single month. Now, I find that to be relatively cheap. And I keep telling people that, like, I met a contractor and he said, you know what, I think you could make it here on 1,200 to 1,500 euros a month and live a basic life as long as you're not paying rent. You should have enough money to live and pay for everything, 12 to 1,500 euros. And I was like, really, that's pretty cheap. And then the question I always get asked is, well, what about the taxes? I hear the taxes are horrendous in Italy. How much are you paying on property taxes a year on your property?
Well, nothing, actually.
Nothing.
So it's not like everybody pays nothing, but what happens is there is a specific category of tax fiscal benefit where you pay nothing on your property taxes every single year. And it's when you have what's called prima casa. You have residency in your own property or in your property in Italy, you don't pay taxes on that. And unless, there's a big caveat here, unless it fits into another type of real estate, which is more luxurious. It has like a swimming pool, it has larger, it's larger. It just really depends on the classification of your property. I have a pretty modest property, and so I don't pay anything. But if it was not my prima casa, I would probably pay about, well, for this one, probably about 500 euros per month, or per year. Excuse me. I would probably pay about 500 euros per year for this townhome style economic property that I have.
Okay, you see that? Now, I can't stress this enough because I hate misinformation out there, because people will go into your comment section and just like say things like, oh, it's going to be super pricey, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair these homes. Like, no, it's not expensive to live in Italy. It's not expensive, your carrying costs. It's not expensive to do construction as compared to the United States. Everything seems to be at a discounted rate when you compare, the two to each other.
I think what it comes down to is perspective, because my lifestyle is much more modest than somebody who drives a Lamborghini. And so what happens is that we, as Americans, as people outside of Italy, they watch videos and they just see more of the luxurious life of Italy, and they don't really understand what it's like to live there. Because the majority of the people are middle income wage earners, and they want to keep their prices down as much as possible and reserve their savings to go on vacations and experience life, or to buy nice things, clothes, things like that, which we haven't really talked about. But as an outside perspective, we just see that all of these really expensive villas that are on the beach, and those ones for sure would have higher than mine in any way, higher property taxes. It really just depends on the community. It depends on your tax obligation, based on your residency. And I think that's all about perspective in the end.
So one thing that you told me about when we were talking offline was about you actually investing in real estate while being in Italy. And you said that you haven't picked up a dollar property yet, that you've been investing and picking up properties on the cheap in the auction market. So I know I'm kind of familiar with the auction market here in the United States. It's usually like tax auctions or foreclosure auctions. Is it similar in Italy? And if you can you just talk about that a bit? Because I think that's going to give people a better sense of what options they have for trying to pick up properties on the cheap in Italy.
It all kind of starts from when I first moved here, and just quickly, I discovered the auction properties because someone sent a link with my wife as we were looking through the real estate agent listings. And what I discovered quickly is that these prices were much, much lower than the typical real estate market. So I became kind of fixated on this thing, like, well, we can instead of using a deposit, we can buy a house with cash. It was really kind of boosted my morale and gave me the initiative to dive onto this thing. So the way it works here, the real estate auctions are public, and they're controlled by the court jurisdiction. So instead of like a title company that just makes a big list of all the titles that they have control of, and then you go and actually do it on the front steps of the title agency, here the judge of the court jurisdiction where the person resided will control and reward auctions based on bids, right? So it's pretty much standard. The differences that you can see are when you go to the US and you get that list and you drive around, you look at the property from the external point of view, And you have to estimate, well, I've got very limited information, but I want to invest about this much. Well, they've set it up. Here's the property has more or less already been taken and possessed by the government. And so at that point, they create an inspection report by a professional inspector that will determine the grade of the property, what condition it is in, because you're going to be buying it as is. But the benefit here is that they've also set up a custodian to allow you to view inside the property. You don't have a lot of time to do it, but you can schedule an appointment. Sometimes that's a bit hard. You schedule an appointment within these 3 months, and you go inside, you see it, even when somebody might still be living there. So you see it, you decide, I don't, or I do want this thing. You participate in the auction, and from that point on, you win or you don't. You keep trying or you don't. And so for us, our very first experience was the house that I'm in right now. This is like a room above the garage, but I have like a 2-bed, 2-bathroom, kitchen, living room with a small external space that is designed like a townhouse that we bought for 38,000 euros on the auction. And so we paid cash for our property. And because we were going to be doing it as another prima casa, you have to understand, in Italy, every real estate transaction also has a purchase tax that ranges between, right now, 2% to 9%. At that time, it was 4% to 9%. And that 4% being for people that are going for that prima casa benefit, right? So now it's 2%. So we paid 38,000 plus a few thousand, probably about 1,400 actually. And for less than 40,000 euros, we owned property in Italy as is. And so it was our responsibility to upgrade it, remodel it. And we did focus on the kitchen, and we installed some floor heating systems, and we've been stepping through the house doing remodel after remodel, one step at a time.
So how much are you all in on that particular project?
On this project, we really only have invested about 50,000 euros, and we've been living here for 6 years, and we've been saving up. But instead of focusing it on this property, I wanted to take advantage of the auctions because of these low prices. We've been saving up our money quickly and trying to reinvest it into another property, as opposed to living in the most perfect property. We went, and the next investment we made was like a villa down just a little bit farther out of Milan. We picked it up for 19,000 euros that needed a lot more renovation. And we started a project there. And then we bought one for 34,500. And this one was, I've shared on my channel that we took it. It was one big, like 2,000, it doesn't sound like very big to most of Americans, but 2,800 square foot space, and in Italy that's actually pretty. That's
pretty huge, yeah.
And we split it into two, and now I rent both sides of these apartments, and I bring in about revenue 500 euros
each apartment. So and what was the total investment on that one?
The total investment on each of these is about 33,000 and 33,000 at this point.
On each side, or this one so 33.
Not cash in, but just total costs, because we hold a very small mortgage against it. We got a 28,000 euro mortgage to kind of take away some of the cash obligation.
All in, the investment price is 66,000.
Yeah.
And you're generating $1,000 a month in rent, right? So you well satisfy the 1% rule, and I would imagine you do cash flow on this.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So I think there's a takeaway that I want to make here, is that one of the best ways to get ahead financially is delayed gratification, right? You see that he, first of all, saw an opportunity in purchasing his primary residence. He paid for that in cash. Then he started living in there and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to piecemeal the renovations, focusing first on the kitchen. And then he focused on some of the other upgrades. But the real focus was putting their money together again to do this over and over again, right? So they could get the next property and the next property. And slowly but surely, he's going to have a nice portfolio of Italian property that's producing, damn near 15, 20% a year return on investment, which is really good. So, there's going to be a group of people who are looking at these Italian deals as like kind of buying into their dream home or buying that vacation home. But there's other people who should be really looking at these as opportunities to grow their real estate portfolio. Right here on ENTP Life, I talk heavily about investing in real estate and other business moves. So this could be like a real possibility for you if you're just approaching it smart and you're willing to take that chance and investing in another country. The numbers seem to be pretty good. Now, David, if somebody was interested in picking up some of these auction properties with you in Milan, how could they reach out to you and maybe you coordinate something with them where you help them get one of these deals?
Well, as of the making of this video, I haven't been pushing the issue because due to obvious reasons of this last problem, this spring 2020, the auctions were all suspended. So as far as inventory went, it went from about 400,000 to zero overnight.
400,000 is the inventory size?
Basically, annually, they sell about 400,000 properties.
Wow.
So maybe at any given moment, it'd probably be more around like 80,000 properties all listed at the same time, but they cycle through them.
Gotcha. Cool. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you for some sort of help or guidance, that's another question I get. It's like, who can we work with? Is that something that you'd be willing to do? And if so, please just share the best way for them to reach you.
Sure. I actually do help people. I've helped some people invest in the auctions in this way, whether it's feet on the ground or buying it so that when they arrive, they have keys in their hand. And you can just contact me. I've set up a Facebook page, facebook.com/the-Dauvo. And inside there's a group actually where we already have more than 100 members that are searching, whether it be €1 homes or auction information. It's just there as a helper, but you can always contact me through that resource. If you don't use Facebook, you can also use the About page here on this channel, or well, on my channel. You can check me out on YouTube as well, and I communicate through email and WhatsApp and Instagram as well. But I try to keep it focused all in one location as best as possible.
Awesome, man. And David, thank you very much for taking the time out to kind of share your experience. I know, we kind of dive into some personal information, but I think it's important for us to be transparent with how we're using our money and how we're making money, just to take away those fears from everybody else. So if you guys are at home and you're thinking about potentially buying one of these Euro homes or even just investing in Italy, please make sure you reach out to us. We're always available to guide you through the process as best that we know how, and we'll always do our best to point you in the right direction. I'm gonna include links for David's information down below for his page on both Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure you follow him. He's always, sincere and honest. He gives you his perspective, and it's from the perspective of someone who's actually living there and doing it from Italy. So there's plenty of value there. Thank you for joining us here at ENTP Life. If you haven't already liked this video and you're still here, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with whoever you think would like it. Thanks again.